Allegiance. So if you could please join me and we will do that. Thank you. All right, thank you. So we do need to, this is our first meeting of the year, do reappointments of chair and vice chair, but I'm going to push that until one of our other commission members gets here, Eileen, and then we might also get Ginny. So we'll just hold for that vote until later on, if that works for everyone.
Can't we just elect them?
We could. They're not here, so. It's like a reverse coup. All right, sounds good. So next item, meeting minutes from our last meeting, which would have been the November meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I didn't look over them, so I'm not gonna vote.
Sounds good. Well, we do need a vote for quorum.
It's all good.
Okay, so I'll make a motion
I'll take
to,
your word.
it looks good. I'll make a motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, consent agenda. James or Matt, you guys want to run through just a summary of what we were looking at?
Yeah, so James and I looked at the plans, the 4 items that we agreed that would go on the consent agenda, and we did the site visits, and all the tree protection was in order, there were no trees being taken on any of the items in the consent agenda, so everything looked fine to us. And we pushed a couple other items out onto the regular agenda just because of the scope of the work, and James and I felt like we'd rather have the whole commission have some time with that.
Great. So just for the record, 145 Browning Lane, 9 Forest Road, 38 Northwoods Road, and 200 Berwind Road are on the consent agenda. Any public comment? No public comment. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, on to the main show of the evening. New grading permits. Do we have anyone from 14 Ferriston Road here with us tonight?
Yes.
Good evening. So come up, state your name, relation to the project, and we'll be talking about, looks like 1 tree to be removed.
Actually, more.
Okay, sounds good. So enlighten
Michael
us.
Wagoner from Hal Engineering, landscape architect, working on this project. I was tasked to do a tree replacement plan, and the plan that you have in front of you, you do, or you don't, shows the project site. We were able to put all of the required replacements back on the site after the grading was finished and the building layout. At the bottom of the sheet, down here, pull this down, that's the calculations for the trees that are being removed.
So on the plan that I'm looking at, the table still only shows 1 17-inch magnolia coming out. Did you possibly submit newer plans at some point within the past week?
Not in the past week. This was done several weeks ago.
Okay.
Required, I guess, there was a comment.
It was originally submitted in November.
Okay. Leah, do you recall receiving any updated plans?
Trish posts the plans, and she only posted them on Friday, so these would have been the latest ones that she has over at the Township building.
Let me see if I have a date stamp on the ones that we have. I don't think this will be an issue. I just want to make sure that the Township gets the latest plans.
I'll be more than happy to send this to you when I get back in my office in the morning.
Sure. The date on these plans is November 11th, 2022. Is that
Correct.
the date that you have? Okay. I'm looking at sheet, excuse me, 01.2.
Yep, CO.2.
CO1.2. And the tree table at the bottom shows just one tree coming out. So what is the,
So the new calculation, after I was tasked to go out there, shows roughly 11 trees to be removed.
okay,
When I did a tree survey that was required, I was able to go out, measure them all, and then we then document it on our survey plan.
Okay, so if you could just, for the record, run through your table identifying the sizes of 6 to 18, 19 to 29, and then 30 plus?
Okay. We have a 12-inch holly and a 13-inch holly. Those were the ones that are along Radnor Road. They were taken out only because they were growing together and they weren't of good specimen quality. So that's going to be replaced. There was an 8-inch dogwood which was on the side of the house. Definitely would have been destroyed during construction or removal, demolition of the house. Same thing with this magnolia and the 2 other dogwoods, which were in the front of the house and also in the back. There's several hickories, which are 18 to 29. They were on a terraced area in the back, which is now gone. So there was no way we could have saved those. Same thing with the cherry tree that was back there, was along the stair tower. One white pine, which was in the front of the building, along where the driveway was going to go, and then another 26-inch cherry, which was in the front of the building. That was a Kwanzaa cherry. It was probably close to the end of its life. But because of location of the driveway, and then also the seepage bed, and then the new construction, it was deemed that we could not save them. So with that, we went through the calculations, and we needed additional 21 trees put back in, and this is what this plan reflects. This reflects new street trees along Bearstein Road, street trees along Radnor, and additional trees along the back property line, which will then help to screen the tennis courts that are already back there. We also did an evergreen screen.
Mike, just speak into the mic so it's recorded for you.
I'm sorry. Thanks. And then we also did a screening between what's going to be a new lot. They're going to go into a subdivision later on, so we thought that we might as well screen it before it's built and before they go through that. So we were able to use the plant material that was required to kind of beef up the site all the way around.
Okay, so what is the total of 6 to 18-inch trees coming out?
6 of them.
6, and then what's the total of 19 to 29?
5.
5, and 30 plus? Any of those?
No, nothing 30 plus.
Okay. Let me just confirm your numbers real quick. Yep.
10 large and 11 small, or anything?
Yep. So do you have 10, what was that again, James? Sorry.
Large canopy?
Yep.
Or what kind of trees are you planting?
Oh, we have
for
October
replacements?
Glories on honey locust and London plains, and then we're going to use green giant arbs as the screening in between.
And how many of those?
There's 5 green giant arbs, and then there's going to be 16 larger shade trees put back in.
Oh, okay.
Okay. For a total of 21, correct?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that does check out calculation.
Counts are good.
Yep. Could you speak a little bit to tree protection and how you'll be getting in and out of the site regarding construction equipment?
Well, the only tree that we're really going to need protected is the one that's back at this corner up here.
And what DBH is that tree?
And that is, I think that was 34-inch caliper, if I'm not mistaken. It's right in the property line. It didn't really fall within the development area.
Sure.
That'll have tree protection around it, and I don't have a tree protection detail, but I do know that there should be one on the plan for it.
Okay. One of our requests would be just getting updated plans
Okay?
with that detail on it. Being that that's a nice big heritage tree, we just want to make sure that that thing is protected. Do you foresee any risk of that tree? It seems like it's far enough away from area of disturbance, but do you expect anything to impact that tree or the root system?
No, not at this point.
Okay. Any other questions from?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Is that tree going to be, you said there's other development going on there? Will it be impacted in anything else?
I'm not positive. We don't, he doesn't, this,
That's years down the line. I think for
Okay.
this purpose, it's not going to
Nothing.
impact it, yeah.
Gotcha. And then also, we should put if the township doesn't have the tree replacement, it should be on the plans as well,
okay.
for their record.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Any public comment? None? So I'll make a motion to approve contingent upon getting the township the latest plans that you have that somehow we don't have, that show the correct tree table, tree protection. And do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, good luck.
Appreciate it.
All right, next address on the agenda, 211 Stratford. No one here? 303 Walnut it is.
Good evening, Patrick Spellman with Site Engineering Concepts. 303 Walnut, you might know better as Lot 5 of the Eagle and Radnor Road subdivision. I'm actually going to turn to the landscape plan that was part of the subdivision. There are 2 active grading permits on this site. Same plan. You have seen these plans 3 times before, I guess is where I'm going with that. There's an overall grading permit plan, and then there was a demo plan. And they all had the same exact landscape plans with them. Lot 5 is this one down here in this corner. And the purpose of this grading permit was to submit, these houses were preliminary designs that were shown on these plans. And when the plan was finalized, we're submitting grading permits for each lot to demonstrate. The plan hasn't changed. The plan as far as grading, tree replacement has not changed, stormwater, and that's the case with Lot 5. That this house pretty much meets the original preliminary alignment of the house. The main difference is front sidewall taken out, rear patio was moved, so it was really just impervious changes to this. Tree removal, tree replacement, and then stormwater have not changed since the last grading permit that came through.
Yeah, just for clarification, because I just learned this last week because I was out there at Lot 18 looking at some issues. All the trees that are being removed on this project, I believe, were approved. They're just coming in front of us for each individual lot. But at no time can they remove any more trees. So if there's any discrepancy or more trees, they got to resubmit their plans for that lot, just so we're all aware.
Right, thanks,
Right.
John. Yeah, similar to what we were seeing with Ordrossen recently.
So this is being triggered just by the removal of dirt? That's what's triggering this to come here?
Yeah, I mean, it was an agreement we made when we had the subdivision to come back for each lot individually, so everybody could be comfortable that nothing's changed of significance.
Got it.
And that's why, and why it's here, yes, it's, excavating the basement out is enough dirt to trigger this.
And that rear patio, is that net new for this plan, or is it just changed in size and location?
So here is, there we go. Here is the original layout. So the patio kind of moved along the back side. It was a little bigger in this plan. We made things bigger and we added extra impervious, so we made sure the stormwater would capture whatever a potential buyer would want. So for the most part, going back to the actual plan, the house had a little bit more on this side. That's not there anymore, and then the patio has been just reconfigured to that.
Got it, okay. I have no further questions. Anyone have anything else?
Yeah.
Uh,
Is there any existing trees? on
Yeah, on this
On
lot.
that lot?
Yeah. So right down in this corner is Lot 5. So all these 6-inch spruce would be considered Lot 5 if we were doing, I'm sorry. I'm used to the guy zooming in and out. Yeah, these are 6-inch spruces, 6-inch oak, another 8-inch oak in this corner. I don't know if you remember, all these trees that were long walnut were planted fairly recently, like 6, maybe 10 years ago. I don't remember the exact time. So they were all still pretty young trees. All the ones marked with a T none of them on Lot 5, but in general, to remind you, all the ones that are marked with a T are going to be transplanted. The ones with X's are just going to be removed.
Do they need to have protection? Are they near the limit of disturbance, or?
Yeah, they are in the limit of disturbance. Are the transfer trees?
No, the trees that are existing that are staying there.
None of these trees are staying. They're
should
either
probably have, I didn't see
so
tree protection around them.
Right.
So I don't,
There's no trees in this corner that are staying. These are either going to be transplanted or removed down this corner. The tree protection fencing is up along Eagle Road, where we're keeping all the larger trees along the street. And then a couple trees internally will have tree protection fencing on them.
but nothing in where you're working now.
Correct. So, so that area will be cleared. Right.
So you had, there's a number of spruces that are all tied up. The branches are tied up.
I would suspect that's getting ready for transfer. Though I'm not exactly sure. I haven't been there.
And there were 2 oaks, I
Yeah,
think.
I can actually answer that because I asked the same question. So they're tied up and getting ready to be transplanted on the site.
Okay,
They're going to be
that's-
moved around the site.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
And then there were 2 oaks, small oaks, further back.
Right. So here's Walnut Avenue. I believe these are the spruces you're talking about that are going to be transplanted. And behind them, there were a line of smaller oaks
Yeah,
that run down. Behind them, they would be removed,
and transplanted?
not transplanted. Just removed. They're just going to start over with those trees.
Anyone else? Do we have any public comment? None? I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
And we'll be back with the next one.
Sounds good. We'll see you then. All right. Would you happen to be from 211 Stratford by chance? No? Okay, no worries. Okay, so that takes us through the new grading permits. So before Matt heads out, we wanted to wait, Eileen, until you were here, but we need to do reappointment of, chair and vice chair. So I'll start off with saying I'd be more than happy to continue as chair.
I'll second that.
That was very fast, but any deliberation before we just vote me back in?
That's totally unnecessary.
Okay, it is.
Should we talk about all the good things that you've done?
Well, we'll get to that, Eileen. Well, thank you. You guys have been a great crew to do all of the very successful things we've been doing over the past few years, so thank you. I will accept the continuation for this year's chair. We'll move on to James. Any thoughts on continuing your term as vice chair?
Nobody else wants to, I have no problem doing it.
All right. So we'll make a,
Most of the work, Seth, so.
hey, I'm happy to do it. We'll make a collective motion to nominate myself as chair and James as vice chair. All in favor? Aye. All right. That's out of the way.
I really deserved it.
Yes,
You're
you
welcome.
campaigned hard for
I
it.
expect many things from you this year, James. All right, old business. So I did put together, a final version of our 2022 goals and highlights that I had planned to present to the BOC during the same time of accepting our Chanticleer donation. That ended up getting put on the consent agenda. However, I do still plan to present this along with our tree maintenance pilot plan that we'll talk about here in a minute. So we'll formalize that, put together a recommendation on how to allocate that $50,000 that we got a nod from the BOC from. And then at the same time, we present the maintenance pilot. I will present all the good things that happened in 2022. So just quickly to recap, number of plantings in 2022 that were officially tendered by us, if you will. So we had a goal of planting 150 trees. in the beginning of 2022. We ended up at 276, so we almost doubled our goal, which is awesome. And our next goal of completing the ordinance updates, so we got the emergency tree removal, that was BOC approved 8/15, the personnel of commission, that was BOC approved November 28th. Both of those have since been adopted and are in our ordinance. The comprehensive update, that's still in progress. Plan for that to be another goal for this year, to continue to chew through that. Tree maintenance proposal, that was our other goal. We completed that, BOC approved November 14th. Obviously, implementation will be one of the goals for this year. And then our last goal, our shade tree ordinance communication plan. So we got the flyer out, finalized, and we've been doing a good job at spreading the word. So I think all in all, we did a great job. Kudos to everyone, and not just us. In the deck, I made sure to mention all of our partners. It takes a village, literally, to pull off what we did. So the BOC, staff, thank you so much. Residents, Chanticleer, of course, is a big contributor financially for being able to purchase all of our trees. James Gibbons and his company lending his mini excavator. I very much enjoyed watching you hill climb with your excavator. Rockwell Associates and John Hosback, thank you so much. Shriner Tree Care, they helped us with the fall planting, and they're always an advocate for protecting trees. Radnor Conservancy, of course. DeVita, earlier in the year, they volunteered a big crew for us for our spring planting. Cabrini, they helped during the fall planting. Do It Best Hardware, they gave us a nice discount on all of our tools that we purchased. And then, of course, couldn't do any of this without Arbor Day Foundation and PHS. So, nice little recap. Lots of good photos in that deck. So, good job, everyone.
Was DeBruno's mentioned?
They were not, but good call out. DeBruno's and anyone else catering-wise that donated for the spring planting? Okay, good call. So, yes, thank you, DeBruno's. All right, so let's talk.
That was a great summary, Seth.
Good, good.
Really awesome.
Glad you guys liked it.
Was
And more
Ricky,
so
was
impressive amount
Ricky
of work
mentioned?
done.
It really was.
Was Public Works mentioned?
Yes, staff. Public Works, Ricky Foster, best guy on the planet. No, but seriously, Parks and Public Works, they really, really helped us with everything throughout the year. So couldn't have done it without you guys and the great crew. So thanks again. And Leah, she keeps us on track too. You know? All right, so let's talk the tree maintenance pilot plan.
Seth, real quick before
yes.
you go there, do you know what the cost was on the planting this year, what we spent?
So we were forecasting right around $19,000, and we came in right on budget. I mean, there was a few extra $100 spent for food. We were expecting to get some donations, but we ended up just fronting the
Was that
cost.
for the 270 trees?
Not for the, that was for the 150.
Okay.
But I will say, I did check with finance, and our current STC balance is $50,000, and that includes the Chanticleer donation. That includes some of the fee in lieu of from 2022. So we'll talk more in detail around that. But I think
Yeah, it's good to point out, I think,
it's
because
the total. Yep.
in years past, I know that they've done the big tree planting, and it'll be around 70,000, I think. for
Yeah.
like
So
60 or 70 trees, so I think once we're gone, might be good for,
sure.
to keep up this.
So we are quote unquote budgeted every year in the BOC approved budget for a roughly $15,000 big tree line item. Now, in addition to that $15,000 that we're budgeted, we get the Chanticleer donation, and then we also get a handful of fee in lieu ofs. So in the end, you know, on an annual basis, we'll bring in, you know, between, let's say, 30, 35,000. So our balance as of a couple weeks ago was 50,000. But I would say in total, what we spent in 2022, just doing rough math, was right around 26,000 or so, which is great for 276 trees. So it's about $100 a tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and normally in prior years, we've spent around 550, and
Right.
even when I first started, it was 650.
Right. Right. Yeah. So
it's fivefold less.
yeah,
if
that's
not
amazing.
more. Yeah, it is amazing.
I mean, the trees are a little bit smaller, but I mean, they are bare root trees, and you know they've been proven to have a higher survivability rate, which is fantastic. And we're able to plant 5 times more trees.
5 to 6
Exactly.
more. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great metric. Yeah, for sure. All right.
Seth,
mhm.
I don't, it's the Lord speaking.
Yes, I thought it was Ricky for a second.
No, his voice
I
is
don't
a
know if
lot
that's a
higher.
compliment or not.
Our membership on the commission, do we have vacancies? Are we going to be advertising for new members?
Yep.
And
So we can touch on that now, but yes. So I did check in with Bill White, and there are interviews in progress. What was holding it up was Ginny is staying, and the ordinance to update the removal of the parks requirement was getting pushed and pushed. And with any ordinance update, you have to introduce it. BOC approves it. 30 days go by, then the BOC adopts it, and then it's put into the ordinance. So that just recently happened. So that was holding up, like officially starting the interviews. But I know that's ongoing, and we should be hearing soon who the selected candidate is.
we only have
One opening, correct? Yep.
Do we get to interview them?
No, unfortunately. But we can haze them.
We can make recommendations.
Yes, and we have made some recommendations, so I'm hopeful. All right. Tree maintenance pilot plan, let's talk that for a minute. So we have $50,000. The idea with this is, just as a quick refresher, is part of the kind of persuasive essay to the board was we're wrapping this as a pilot. We're going to start small with hopes that we'll continue this and it will be something bigger. So we had identified the Willows and then the Radnor Trail to be the first 2 considered areas to clean up. This would include pruning, devining, would not include any removals, likely would not include any, let's say, injections for ash trees, but just a proactive way to maintain trees and hopefully allow them to much more so leaf out if they're choked by vines, or remove dead parts of the trees to help inhibit newer growth, all that fun stuff. So spoke with Ricky a little bit about this the other day, and I think we have a good kind of path forward with what makes sense, from a township perspective, because at the end of the day, this being over 25,000, it's going to have to be put out to bid. So my thought is it doesn't make sense to, let's say, split this maintenance out into 3 parts so that it's under the bid amount. I think we should just do it all at once, hire one company to do it. Under the purview of John Hosback, we're going to hire you to oversee the project. And we'll make sure that this isn't a volunteer role for you, John. We'll make sure that there's a consultancy fee in there for you to oversee this. I think that's important. Not only, we want to make sure things are fair, but we also want to make sure things are budgeted appropriately for when this, goes into next year and then the year after and beyond, and if it gets larger and larger. So a couple of things that we kind of need to nail down. One is, any comments on just doing one big project versus a couple smaller ones of maintenance? Does that make sense to everyone?
It does. It'll make it a lot easier to make sure, have some statistics as to whether it was successful or not.
Right.
instead of running all over the place with 3
Can I make one comment on that?
Mm-hmm.
So when it goes over a certain amount of money, it goes on to a program called Pen Bid, and it has to go to the lowest bidder. My experience, and I'm speaking just on my behalf, is we've had some unqualified people, but they had the insurance requirements, they had everything that was required to obtain that bid request. And obviously, they were awarded because of their cost. We can get guys that are a little bit JV per se. So I recommend if you're going to break this up, break it into different parcels so that we can get a qualified candidate. And I believe that number is what, Ricky?
The commissioners have to approve anything over 7,500, but it has to go out to bid for anything over 25,000.
So what you're suggesting is, let's say we do the Willows and the Radnor Trail. Those are two separate projects, but we can identify who that contractor would be. Okay. That is a good point, because we have no say in, it's the lowest bidder wins.
It could be a guy from Pittsburgh that's trying to gather work. They come here, they stay in a hotel, it's low bid.
Yeah,
Communication might, I mean, you might get a great guy, don't get me wrong, but you might get a guy with no communication.
sure. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a-
Seth, and I
that's a good
sort of
point.
like the idea that we'd have some diversity in the projects, where like the trail is a lot different from the Willows. So
Mm-hmm.
the Willows' setup is almost, the maintenance there is going to be way less intensive than the trail. So
Right.
I think that might play into like our decision.
Okay. You've changed my thought on this.
I would also have a different suggestion,
Let's hear it.
one that would get more work out of the money. If we need somebody like John, as somebody, a consultant or somebody to go out, or us, and mark out points
Sure.
to do it. I think John would be the best person because he knows the parks. And just say, okay, a couple thousand or whatever he charges, mark these out. And then I think we say, okay, $2,000 or say $2,200 per day to a company for a 3-4 man crew, and figure it out that way. We'll get 15 to 20 days out of it. If we bid this out, we're going to get 5 days.
You think?
Or 6
right,
days.
Right.
We're gonna, the first year we're gonna do this, we're gonna get 5 days of work. It's not gonna be really, I don't think it's gonna be seen by anybody. But if we get 15 days out of a crew, 20 days, half of them being really good days that they'll do the work, we're gonna see a difference.
Yeah, okay.
And James, the going rate is about 2,500, right, for
People are going down to about 2,500 now. I bet you if we're able to get something on the books within the next month or so, I think we can get it for 2,200. If we can say, okay, we'll give you 5 or 10 days. Or even 3 days,
Sure.
and then do it over. Even use the guy that does it now, Horgan. I mean, I know who he is. He does solid work.
Yeah.
Um,
And he does active work with the township?
He does a lot of the removals.
Yeah.
When they come up. So getting somebody like that, we're saying, don't get a bid. $2,000, $2,200 per day. I think we'll get that in the wintertime, and we'll get 15 solid days of maintenance.
Sure. Yeah, my one thought of how do we say, hey, here's the span of the Radnor Trail. It's a quarter of a mile. This is the project, and this is what needs to be cleaned up.
Exactly.
But versus if you get, $2,500 a day and you say, go at it for 20 days, I mean, you could get less than that run, you could get more than that run, but I think we need to define, like, from this location to this location, we want cleaned up. And that's what you should shoot for.
Yeah.
But that's
so-
hard to kind of,
But if you
I
do it
guess.
in 3-day spans, you keep it under the 7,500,
Sure.
and if that crew doesn't work out, they're not doing a good job,
sure.
take it somewhere else. I
So,
mean, you can only go so fast devining if you have a
Right.
bucket truck or
or
whatever.
you're going to have slower areas, faster areas, depending on what the issues
Yeah.
are, right?
But I think the key is the number of days you get a crew out there. So if you get a crew like Shriner, Horgan, Ward, they send a crew out to do a job, they're going to do a regular day's work
Right,
as they would for anybody else.
right.
They're not going to milk it.
Sure, right. Okay.
So-
And as long as there's oversight by, John and the township, I think, that would be a key factor to this as well. Eileen?
Yeah, so one thing I'm just not as familiar with or comfortable with is, James, you're recommending bid it out on like basically a time and material versus here's the Radnor Trail, we're going to give you X amount to get this done. It could take you 3 days, 10 days. It's up to you how you manage your crew. And
Yeah, I would say, okay, John says Radnor Trail, we need this portion. He's going to know how many days it's going to take. So we'll say, okay, I want 3 days at $2,250 on this place, and this is the work we want done. They'll get it done, or they'll get close to it. Otherwise, if you go through Penn bid, if you go through everything else, you're going to get, I think you'll get 5 days of work for 50,000. What do you think, John? How many days? 5 to 10 days maybe at the, I mean, and now there's a new ordinance that anything over 25,000, you have to have a apprenticeship or something? There's
That's
some.
correct.
So how many companies do that?
Probably not many.
Yeah, so you're going to have to hire a company that's unionized maybe or something. I don't know.
So I think we all agree that we'll keep it under the bid limit. I guess the next question would be, how do we keep it fair in regards to, to me, I think we should, think of a handful of local, and, say, here's what we want to do. Here's the price that we feel it should be at, and let them provide us with estimates and go from there and see what their
And even
availability is.
There's a couple guys in the township, Lyle Ruddy, I'm not even friends with that guy. I know him and all, but, keep it in the township, they have to pay taxes and back to the township, so
Right. Yeah, I agree. Keep it local.
keep it local.
And again, as Ricky just pointed out to me, whispered, we're looking for, you guys and the township, we're looking for quality
Right.
more than repetition. So, that's the way we got to look at it.
Yeah.
I believe that's the way we should focus our efforts is
Agreed.
quality, so that we're not coming back and doing things
Right.
every year in that same location.
Because
Yeah.
what will happen is if you get somebody divining a tree, they're gonna mark up the entire tree, just going crazy with the chainsaw.
Right.
You want somebody that's gonna do a nice job.
And if you could rip out some vines and pull down some big branches
Yeah.
at the same time if you're not careful. Yeah.
And one thing to remember is that Shriner Company did the trail survey. So they're, intimately familiar with like issues on the trail.
Right.
And who knows, they might be even incentivized by that job. So
100%. Yeah. So let's talk locations for a minute. I was thinking that obviously this is a pilot program, so we want to make it as successful as possible, right? In order to do that, we need a lot of visibility and eyeballs on this project and be able to show success. So I think that the trail, obviously we get a lot of foot traffic there. That makes total sense. The Willows, there's events there, there's some things going on, but it may not be as high visibility for the pilot as it needs to be. So I just wanted to voice that ever real quick and see if anybody had any thoughts or other ideas.
With experience that I see in parks, because I'm there a lot of times during the course of the year, is, you have the Radnor multipurpose trail, which gets great use all year long. Your second park that gets a lot of utilization is the Hartford Park, the dog area, and now the trail system that was constructed. A lot of utilization there. Your Willows would be third, and then you have a lot of parents with children at Clem-McCrone. So, which has a lot of, woodlands along the little stream corridor there as well.
Would you say Hartford or Clem-McCrone is in worse shape maintenance-wise?
I'd say building proper and landscape amenity at Hartford is in good shape. It's when you start getting down into the woodlands. We have a lot of invasives, a lot of vines. Gretchen did a great job spearheading a volunteer day there years ago. And we put a dent in it, but it's back again.
Sure.
I would say Hartford,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
just because of size.
Yeah.
Yep.
How does everyone feel about Hartford instead of the Willows?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Is there a possibility to do 3-day jobs at a couple different sites. So then that way you keep each, say the Willows, 7,350, or just under the 7,500 mark. That's one job. Hartford's another job. And you could probably, you hit 6 or 7 different spots.
Yeah, I still feel though, I mean, that I guess technically could avoid BOC approval, but I still feel being this a pilot program, we would want to collectively bring this forward and have them at least nod to this program.
Yeah, but if it's all completely legal, I'd rather get more for our money since,
Yeah, I don't
mean,
have,
taxes keep on rising.
sure.
And I want to
Well,
spend
what,
it the
I mean,
best
you
way.
wouldn't get more for your money necessarily that way, right? Or
Well, I
you,
guess if what's the pen bid? 25 or 75?
Why don't we do this?
25.
Why don't we take an
25?
area, really harsh, vine-covered, stricken area, and, measure off square footage, maybe a 200 by 200-foot section, and get a couple bids from local guys, and find out what our,
threshold.
quarter-acre cost structure is. And then we can prioritize that over, and I can figure out those, and Mr. Rossini probably has it as well, those square footages of all those woodlands. And then that way we can look at how we're gonna manage, but more importantly, the cycling. So coming back to make sure that the money's being spent, that in 5 years, it's not forgotten. We have a cycle program where we're coming back and hitting those areas
Right.
to make sure they're still free of invasive vines.
Right.
So if we have a square footage cost structure, that way you guys can budget. We can say, okay, staff and myself can say, okay, we have 2.4 acres of woodlands with vines at this park. So you know for your budget, hey, we're gonna hit an acre this year at Hartford, an acre at the Willows, however you wanna do it, that gets mapped out. So we can get like a big map and highlight and then keep it, a cycling program on there.
I like that idea.
Seth, can I add to that?
Yes.
I guess a couple questions, and you guys can give the direction on how you want it to go. I don't know, first off, when you plan on starting this pilot program as far as time of year. That's just the first one you can
Yeah, I think that'll
answer.
be subject to, I mean, it sounds like if we can come to an agreement on where and how many contractors, that we could probably start getting estimates fairly
Yeah.
quickly, and
And-
then just base it off of availability of
Okay.
contractors.
And that leads me to my next point, along with John and what you're all discussing. It may be good to have pictures before and after.
100%.
That way, the commissioners can see how successful this program is, so that we can push for next year having more money. Because if you do a square footage area, that's great if they don't know what it looked like beforehand. There's plenty of areas, I'm thinking of Ditmar Park. That whole woods line where they walk that trail, we took down a bunch of trees. All of those trees are usually covered with vines hanging off. Even at the Willows, the exit, there's where the duck chute is. That area is littered with vines. All around the creek is littered with vines. I think Steve Norsini, when he first came to Public Works, he actually had the Public Works staff, the parks crew in particular, we had to go around and cut all the vines off and then clear
Right.
probably a 5-foot circle around all the trees to keep the vines from coming back. So I think the before and after pictures would do wonders for whatever area you do, and that's why I was asking when you were going to start, because we might want to pump the brakes some so that we can build up, how bad things are, and then go in and start clearing, because you may be able to operate, like James said, and do square footage areas of certain places so they could see, well, we did this park, it's really bad, this is what it looked like before, this is what it looked like after, and kind of give them a sample of what it could look like. Climacrone is another one, that before the creek and after the creek, we have to go and clear that fence between the houses in Beaupre. I mean, you
Sure.
can't see through from the trail through that fence, because
Right.
that's how much, not only the undergrowth, but also the vines and everything
Sure.
that kind of grows on the trees. So it's just a suggestion, but
I agree.
however you want to,
I think we should, now that you say this, I think we're all excited to get this done, but we should wait until things leaf out in the spring just so we can visually see the impact.
And we can I can ask Tammy or Mr. Norsini if we have, maps, aerial imagery of all these parks. And then we could spend one of our meetings or have an ad hoc meeting, highlighting where all these invasives are. So we have a good idea and maybe get some calculations. And know what we're up against at all these parks. So, we might find out that we have, 70 acres worth of invasive stricken, areas.
Right.
But one other thing to consider, and I know the word herbicides in Radnor are like oil and vinegar, and I totally concur. I don't like herbicides myself. However, when you're managing vines, you have to have a herbicide program, and it doesn't mean spraying, okay? It means they have this little brush, you paint the end of the stump. You never pull the vines out of the trees. That's
Right.
really poor practices. You cut it at the ground level, as long as you have a little gap, and then you just brush it with Garlon, and it has a dye in it, which is blue, so you can see where you're treating. Because if you do not treat, it's gonna come back in 2 years. So
Right.
You're gonna be back to square one. And you're not broadcast spraying, it's not getting in the water, it's not hurting habitat. It's clearly just a pinpoint herbicide application onto the main invasive plant structure.
That's a good call out, John. Yeah, I agree. I've personally cut some vines, and if you don't do that, they come back next season.
Seth, could I make one more
Yes.
point? And I know we're throwing a whole bunch
We'll
of
allow
stuff
it,
at you.
Ricky.
I know as far as us treating the trees, as far as price-wise, might be a hard undertaking, but me and John had a conversation kind of offline before. And just to give an example of a tree that we wish we would have caught, early enough to treat was the one at Hartford Park. A huge ash tree. It's basically everybody parks right there at the tree. And because it started deteriorating so fast, we had to wind up pruning it this past year, and it just looks like a shell of what it used to be. So if there is a tree, maybe, whether someone on the committee or even John is able to identify in the township that is starting maybe on a decline, or you guys notice that it's starting to head down a path, and it's, heritage tree, it's a tree that's been around for a long time, it's something that we want to invest in saving. I think that would also make a big, splash, for the committee to be able to identify something to be able to save, not just feel like we have to stand there and wait for it to fall apart, but, these are all avenues to try to get more money to,
For
do
sure,
more
yeah.
than just divine. But if we can treat some trees, in sections and even areas, I know we planted, what was that, 320 in Conestoga? Like we had, taken down a whole bunch of trees in that area, then we planted, a bunch of saplings, but there was no divining process,
Right.
done there. So there's so many areas that we can go into,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to keep pouring things on.
But that's your objective. I mean, you want to focus those funds on vines, correct? Vine management, invasive management.
Vines, invasives.
Yep.
I mean, the whole goal of this is to be proactive with our canopy, right? So, we're not going to divine small bushes or, waste our time with under canopy per se, unless it's affecting the large canopy. But that would be the primary mission of this, yeah. But I would say in comment to the heritage trees, so while we are, my plan is I'm sure we all will, to walk the sites of Hartford and then the trail ourselves, just to identify, what sections make sense to clean up. But while we're doing that, if we identify, a couple of particular heritage trees, by all means, let's throw that into the project. I know we did touch on late last year, identifying separately high-value heritage trees in the township and starting some sort of placking or protection, and that would be all part of the ordinance updates that we're working on. So I think that's the next step to this, which is great, but we'll, if we see a heritage tree that needs some help for this project, let's take care of it, but we'll get whatever we can. So let's,
Seth, I
yeah.
have one question. So David Kelly is the new GIS coordinator in Radnor, and he reached out to me wondering if I could meet with him and give him the tree survey, which is on FileMaker that
Yep.
I have. Is there any use for that really old survey with this, in terms of identifying certain really bad spots that we knew?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you probably can picture in your head, the worst spots on the trail and in Hartford. So, yeah, I think that would be,
I mean, some of that's gone.
Sure, but
some of it's not, and it's
at
as good
least
as
it
we
would-
have, so it's,
it would be a good starting point, yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
I'll
distribute that around. Now, that file, is that something, it's not free software, is it?
No,
File?
we bought the
Right.
license. So we
Right.
bought 2 licenses.
So how do we, could we access it somehow?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's still, right, John, I mean, TIG has no issues with, we bought the license, we did the survey. I don't know if you heard me, but David Kelly is the new GIS guy.
That's correct. That's what Ricky was just telling me. I
And
didn't.
so he wants access to he wants access to the survey.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know what he's going to do with it, whether he's going to do layers or something, I don't know.
He'll be able to do layers. Oh, absolutely.
So, but my question to these guys was, is that of any value for the maintenance work?
For sure. We were just talking, we're going to ask him, Ricky's going to ask him tomorrow to see if we can start getting maps, GIS maps of every park. And we'll be able to, go to him and highlight those areas that have invasives and vines. So, I mean.
But in terms of the licensing, we're.
Oh, no, you're fine. That's Radnor's license.
Property, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You just can't give it to another township.
Sure. So to nail this down, are we thinking one contractor or 2 contractors, one for each project, if you will? What may determine that is if, Leah may know this, I'm going to put you on the spot. So let's say we did chunk these projects out, both under 25, but we used the same contractor. Is that kosher?
I think when it's under 25, but over 75, you have to get 3 prices,
Okay.
and then choose the lowest one of the 3 prices.
But is that a kosher loophole that we can use? 2 projects, same company?
Oh, well, you're going to have to get it approved by the commissioners anyway,
Okay,
because
so
it's
they'll-
over 7,500,
They'll decide if
and
it's a
they'll
kosher
decide,
loophole.
like, you'll tell them, this is the, we got 3 estimates, this was the lowest one,
Sure,
you know.
okay. It might be cost
Or sh-
effective for us to use,
Or you may be able to go out for a request for proposal and get anybody who wants, it's not
it's not pen bid,
It's not pen bid,
right?
but it's probably how we got John.
We love you, John. Okay,
That way, everybody would have a chance to bid on it if they wanted to,
sure.
but it would be under 25,000, and, you could get more than 3 estimates.
Right, because my thought is, it might be more cost-effective, we might get more work done if it's one company versus 2 or 3 or whatever, and logistically, too. I mean,
One other thing to keep in mind is if the project is pruning trees, and part of it is cutting vines, you don't need to pay the price for pruning. You could just get another landscape company to cut vines and paint. There's no climate involved, so their rates would be lower,
So, would you?
just to keep the,
Yeah, I mean, you could have one
to add
company
something.
come through and cut vines, and the other
that's what
company
the
come through and
project
prune.
yeah, it depends on whatever the project is, how we put
Yeah.
it together.
Any thoughts on that, John?
I think there's a lot of great qualified landscapers within the area that can handle the vine
Okay,
management. And a lot of these landscapers have a tree guy or a certified arborist on staff, a lot of them.
right.
We can set those thresholds, so, I think we should focus on the vines first, and if we find a heritage that needs a work, that would come through PW.
Yeah, my only thought on, so cutting vines, it's not as noticeable as pruning, right?
Well, it is if you,
Immediately.
6 months it will be.
I'll tell you now, if you take a look at Ridley Creek State Park right now, if you're driving along, what is that, Providence Road?
Mm-hmm, yep.
And you come to the corner of Providence and Gradyville.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the degraded woodland that used to inhabit very large red oaks, scarlet oaks, black oaks, now it's about 5 foot of just invasive mess. There's proof there that it works.
Right.
And, I mean, if you drive by an area that's vine-stricken and then you cut those vines the following year, I mean, you see great results and, you know, future growth for those trees as well.
Right. Yeah, I understand, you know, like.
It's a management tool.
The next season, we'll see a very big difference, but I'm thinking in order to show success for the pilot, you know, maybe,
I think the success is in the canopy loss, the cost to remove those trees once they're dead from vines, the risk associated with having dead trees within our park system. That's the proof that we need to sell to the BOC.
Sure.
And maintenance is getting done.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
It's a big point.
But I wouldn't want to do 100% vine cutting.
No.
Maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's 75-25. I mean, what do we think I think the 50-50 mark gets us, you know, the short-term immediate impact of, you know, we're pruning trees that have dead limbs. That obviously you can see that right away. The devining part of it, you know, we'll see next season. Maybe some towards the end of this season, depending on when we do
Why don't we meet? I mean, we're allowed to because we're not going to be talking about bids or making any.
Sure.
We meet at Hartford, and because that has a little bit of everything: vines, heritage trees, trees that need pruning, and kind of get a sense of how we're all feeling.
Yeah,
You know,
that
where we
sounds
want to
good.
focus. You know, and we can point out those things. Yep.
Yeah.
And get some pictures. That's a great place for pictures for the pilot program for the BOC. We can take a lot of great pictures there.
Perfect. All right. Sounds like a plan. So we'll coordinate when we want to do that offline. All right. Any other thoughts on the maintenance plan?
Just one last thing, the willows, and I don't know if we do this during the plan or some point sooner. There's a tree, Ricky, in the middle of that island. I think it's a willow tree. I haven't been there in about 5 months, but you know the big pond? It's got a lot of deadwood in it. That would be a great before and after picture to deadwood it. A lot of people walk in there, and I was there over the summer, and I was like, man, this is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, no, that's the perfect tree, not only
Yeah.
to do the dead wooding, but if it's possible for an injection, that's the type of tree that would make a splash.
Yeah.
I
Do
mean,
you
we have our
do you remember
fountains
what it
there.
is? Or
Thought it was a willow.
is it, I forget,
Yeah. Thought it
my
was
brain
a-
doesn't work like it used to.
Yeah.
It's been so long.
I think
No, that's the perfect tree though. That's the perfect tree.
Yeah,
I
that
feel
got
like.
pruned and
okay.
look
So
great.
let's add that to the list. Why not? You know. Okay. And you know, if we're bidding this out for days worth of work,
Are we going to try any volunteer days? I mean,
don't-
I know we have to get a lot of this done with contractors,
yeah.
but you know, having 1 or 2 volunteer days a year, you know, does bite a little bit of off. You know.
Yeah, I would love to say yes, but the coordination of volunteers for the spring and fall planting and then adding another thing onto that, I think we're at capacity, I would say. I don't know. I'm looking at Frank like he's the volunteer man. And we might run out of volunteers for our plantings if we tap into these guys too much. So I would, maybe for this year, contractors, we'll start thinking about volunteers. I know we could make it happen. It's just a matter of capacity and time.
Yeah. We could always look at, one year we had Boy Scouts or Eagle Scouts who volunteered, and that's exactly what they did was devining. So we could reach out to maybe the Scouts and see if they'd like to do it.
And I know we have.
This isn't for managing this project. I'm just thinking out loud if we used to have that.
Sure.
We can get some things done. You know, it's just-
Yeah, 100%. I know, like, the Conservancy and other local groups would, by all means, help us out. All right, so we'll keep that in the back of our minds. And then also, John, in speaking of fairness, you know, we'll just think of what it would cost for you to manage this, and if you would want to, follow up every couple days to see how the project's going, or once a week, or what makes the most sense, and we'll make sure that that line item is part of this
Yeah,
project.
usually we do a pre-scope review. So starting day, then we do a mid, and then we do a completion before they're paid,
Okay.
sign off. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
So as part of this, get whatever number you're thinking over to Ricky and Leah, and we'll make sure that that's a part of this. I don't want you volunteering your time. You've done a
I'll see
bunch
if
of
my
great
pen
work.
can write.
Sounds good. All right, anything else on the maintenance pilot? So our goals and next steps would be, we'll start thinking about when we want to schedule some on-sites. See you, Matt. Thanks for coming. And then we'll start thinking about some local contractors. I like the idea of, maybe a pool of landscapers and a pool of tree companies. Some of the landscapers might have tree services. And Leah, maybe we can nail down how we, whether it's an RFP or
Yeah, I'll
whether.
check into that, because I think
Yeah.
with the RFP, then you can actually have an interview with them or whatnot.
Okay, perfect, all right.
You
yeah,
know,
if we
they,
could-
they send in their qualifications or whatnot, and you
Right,
meet with them and decide if that's,
got it. Okay, yeah,
that you don't always, like, they didn't always go with the low bidder if there's some reason
right,
somebody sells you with something better.
right, okay. Yeah, if you could look into that, and then I would say, we'll wait for springtime for things to leaf out, identify and double-check the spots we want to tackle. And then, as far as timing, I mean, at that point, it'll be up to, whatever availability these contractors have, whether it's summertime, fall time, whatever. Sound like plan? Cool.
Is there any chance to get something done in the wintertime? If there was, between now and February, if we had an area that we needed pruning, say,
Mhm.
if there was an oak tree that you knew about, you'd want to prune that probably now rather than
This
in
is
the
true.
summertime, right?
Well, if,
So-
right, I mean, live wood versus dead wood, right?
Yeah.
If it's dead, you can kind of prune.
Well, I don't think, some trees you don't want to prune
Sure.
in the summer, so I'm just saying, taking a part of it, if there's something that's known by the township
Yeah.
or,
I guess divining can happen
That can happen
in the
anytime.
summer,
Yeah.
right? But maybe the pruning, we wait until the late fall, winter time.
yeah.
Entering-
I'm just saying if there was something that you know of now, Ricky or John, and if the funds are available, and we say, hey, this tree needs to be done during the wintertime, can we try to get that done?
But what if we go to Hartford and then we
Yeah,
can
I
do our,
think there's a
visit
ton
and
of
make the
trees over there.
decision?
You'll be able to find plenty over
Yeah.
Hartford that we could probably do now.
I just want to make sure we maximize our dollars, that's all. Like, doing it piecemeal, you're going to get less done than if you were to plan out a big chunk of it. But I mean, I love just
I understand.
going
I just
gung-ho
think that
too.
people are slow right now. You're going to get more bang for your buck right now, I think.
Okay.
When the spring hits, people get busy.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Sure.
during this, if we're doing divining, I would suggest waiting until July or August. That's when the
Summertime.
landscapers slow down.
Yeah.
So you get good deals then. That's all.
Good insight, yeah, okay, so maybe we focus on the pruning now. Go visit Hartford sooner than later. We know the willow at the Willows. And we can check out the trail too.
Set a date now for Hartford?
Sure. Are we good for a evening or a weekend? I don't know, John,
Evening's
what-
gonna be tough because it gets dark at
Yeah.
4:30. I mean, do we have time before work, before everybody goes to work in the morning, or?
I could do a morning, early, like 7:38 situation, or even earlier. How about everyone else?
Eileen? Tuesday or Thursday, you could? You guys want to do Thursday, February 9th?
Let's do it. Thank you, John.
Oh, hold on. Let me
What
get back
time?
out.
No, you're fine.
Do you want to do Tuesday, Valentine's Day?
The We'll leave that one there. 13th? That's a Monday, correct?
14th.
What time do we want to do? 7:30?
I'm going to send everybody a meeting request right
I
now.
was just going to do that, but thank you. Johnson, man. All right, perfect. Next, ordinance update, Personnel Commission, touched on that, so that's been adopted. Interviews in progress. We should be getting a person soon. Comprehensive update, that's the next thing to get back to chewing into. Stay tuned. New business, spring tree planting. So let's spend a little bit of time and talk about this. So Frank put together a lovely sheet. Yeah, Ian, are you back there? Could you turn on the overhead camera doohickey so Frank can... thank you, sir. Run with it, Frank. All you.
Could we zoom in? Okay, that's probably, can you guys read that?
Yeah, well enough.
Okay. So basically, this is another PHS grant opportunity. I put our application in because some of the trees are hard to order. So the application now has got 80 trees. I have half are medium-sized trees and half are very large canopy trees. And that bill comes to $6,800 just for the trees. We have, Seth, you had mentioned the Wayne Business District. They may have an appetite. And then James came up with the farmer's market.
I was looking at it the other day, there's all overhead power lines.
Okay.
We talked, yeah, we talked about the farmer's market years ago. The only way that we could make that work is if we were to create islands in order to plant the trees. But the township didn't want to do that because it's private property. The parking lot is private property. So, and James is right, anywhere where there are beds, there's overhead wires.
What about ornamentals? You know,
About 20 feet, I was actually driving by there today, so they would
get lost.
work, but depends on what it is, because they probably don't want too much leaf litter. I mean,
It'd be right into Lancaster Avenue.
Okay.
depends on what's flowering, what's dropping.
Frank, move that back to the middle of the table.
Well, then I can't see it.
You can bend the microphone towards the middle.
So that was one opportunity. You had some conversations with Reed Taylor.
Yes, so we have communications with the AT&T lot area. I think we can make that happen. So yeah, I think the 80 total makes sense. That's what we did last spring, thereabouts, right? I do like the idea of saving the bigger planting for the fall. That'll give us time to focus on this maintenance pilot and some other things. But I do still think we should take advantage of the grant because we only have an opportunity in the spring and the fall to do that, and we might as well.
So I allocated 40 trees for the right-of-ways, and then, because we do have a waiting list there, and we also have, we could get volunteers to do 20 trees in a park or two pretty easily. And volunteers like to plant in warm weather as opposed to November, the colder weather.
Agree.
I put the dates up here. This wasn't in the thing. It's April 19th and 21st are the pickups. The park planting would be the 24th, and then we have a week or so to plant in the right-of-ways. So we're talking just like last year, in the end of April. Then we had the water bag. Ricky and I talked about that through email. They do save maintenance for Public Works.
Yeah, so I did want to take a moment to talk through how we can help eliminate some of the challenges that we had with the fall planting. We planted a ton of trees, and we uncovered some scaling issues, I think. So I think we should, for every tree order moving forward, get tree diapers for park plantings, for residents, for wherever we're getting trees. I think that would be super helpful.
Why would you do it for residents?
Only because survivability, and knowing and seeing this past summer some of the newer trees that were planted over the prior year's plantings, if you didn't water them every week, we had a lot that bit the dust. And I think it's a good insurance policy.
I just ask because we did the water bags, and then people left the water bags on too long, and then it burns the tree,
Yeah.
fries the tree. So it's just, we would just have to be able to mitigate that with
Well,
these bags.
Well,
the
they're
donuts.
not bags, they're the diapers.
Yeah,
So-
no, I
Yeah,
know, but
these-
the rings.
Yeah, well, so
There's-
those you
there's
can
a-
leave.
There's
in-
additional labor with the diapers in the sense that they have to be charged.
Mhm.
They need to be soaked for like at least 4 hours, I think it is, Ricky,
Yeah,
to get them started. But then after that, they're,
you can.
no
you
recurring
can leave
cost.
them indefinitely. They don't need to be, they turn into basically a weed barrier
yeah.
once the
Okay.
gel inside of them no longer works, which is usually like 3-4 seasons you can get out of them, in my experience.
And I think the retail price for these are about $45, so the 23 is a pretty good savings.
The larger ones, I actually looked, they're closer to like $75, $80. So yeah, it's a great deal.
And then I did make a unilateral decision not to do any ornamentals. I don't know what you
That
guys
we don't
feel
want,
about
yeah.
that.
We just want shade trees, so medium and large,
Yeah.
big shade trees.
Yeah, the list looks good.
So if we added, so what's the total again? 6,900 for the trees, plus if we added, how much are the tree diapers again? They're
23 each,
23 each, so 23 times 80.
1,600.
There you go. So we're only adding 1,600 to that, so around $7,500 to do 80 trees.
I guess one question, Ricky, would you be able to do 40 our right-of-way trees? Or do we have to hire somebody to do that? You don't have to answer now, but that would be one question.
I would propose we give Ricky some help and tap into some of the local tree service companies. I know we got people biting at the bullet to help plant. Shriners offered. I know Ward has offered.
James did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're more than willing to help. The only thing is the 2 times that we have our, big plantings is spring, so it's crazy for the Parks Department, with spring cleanups and fertilizing, grass starts to grow, they're mulching, so,
Keeps
to
you thin.
lose a couple.
Keeps you in good shape.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, and then in the fall is leaf season. So yeah, we do have some volunteers, whatever company John offered he'd helped us before. So we definitely want to have some skin in the game, but I wouldn't want to, task my guys with planning 40. So even if we did 10 or 15, and I guess the bigger part would be the park conversation that I had with Seth, if he'll touch on that part.
Yep.
What
So-
about the crew that we had last year?
Shriner?
No.
Oh,
the-
Tree Authority.
Yeah, how did that work out?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it went
I
well.
mean, they were $100 a tree,
I
right?
think-
$110?
No, they were,
It was
yeah,
six-
$100 a tree.
It
We
was like
paid them
108. I
5,000.
saw
Yeah.
6135 was paid out or
Um,
something by the township.
They couldn't do in the right-of-way, though, I thought.
No, they did.
Yeah,
Oh, they
that's
did?
where they went.
They did, yeah. They did 50 resident plantings.
And then it was more for the mulch one.
Yeah, Hassan and I forget her name, who was the one planting. But she did a great job. I think there was a little concern around the speed at which she was planting. She was only picking up a few trees at a time, but I do think she was taking very good care of what she was doing, and they got into a groove. I know Hassan's offered to do, a call to say, hey, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, here's how we could do, a better job collaboratively. So I would suggest we first reach out to Shriner, reach out to Ward, reach out to the guys that we can think of that would offer help to plant, tap into them first, save tree authority for our bigger planting in the fall, knowing that we're going to need more help then. See who we can get and go from there.
Okay, I'll be glad to put that together and reach
Okay.
out to those people,
That would be great.
maybe with a little bit of advice from Ricky's crew.
Yeah. So let's talk about the parks for 1 minute. So in speaking with Ricky, just rehashing, again, scaling problems. These are good problems. But we did 4 parks, right, in the fall?
Cohen, Ditmar.
Yep. So we ran into a time crunch with some of them, and I know, like, cleanup, Ricky and his crew did a great job at, helping, going back through and fixing some ties, cleaning up mounds of dirt, putting down the tree diapers and things. So I think one suggestion that I have that we can talk through is, I think logistically 4 parks is a lot. So maybe we just do 1 park at a time, and we cycle through the parks, knowing that we're doing spring, fall, spring, fall. We'll always hit the parks. That way, Ricky and his crew only have 1 park to go to logistically, and whichever park we're going to, although the Willows is very nice to meet at and do breakfast and lunch, and we've gotten into a good groove of doing that, but instead, whichever park we're picking to plant, that's where we do the food at, just so that if we run into a time crunch or whatever, we're just there anyways. So we do breakfast, do the example planting. Ricky and his crew only have 1 park to worry about to drop off trees and tools and things. And then if we run out of time, we're there anyways because we're offering lunch. And, inherently, if we're there trying to wrap up, other people may be willing to stay and wrap up. So just some thoughts and feedback that I heard from last time.
I think we have to enhance the demo training
Mm-hmm.
so that the people know that, or even have them practice a little bit on tying ties and what to do with the excess dirt and clumps of grass and stuff.
Agree. But how do we feel about limiting it to 1 park?
It's
at a
only
time?
20 trees, so it's fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, good. And we'll meet there for breakfast and lunch rather than the Willows. And we can find spots for trees at 1 park. We can cram them in. Okay, so that sounds like a plan. And that way, I do think the tree tenders that we have, we had 2 at least at each.
We had 2 site captains
2
at
site
each place.
captains. Depending on, like, Hartford was tough because the trees were just spread so far out that it's like you're walking back and forth all over the place trying to manage and teach. So I think if we,
Yeah, but if we're at
quadrupled the
one
amount
park,
of
I think we can manage it.
Mhm.
It'll be easier.
1 park, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I think if we have all those tree tenders in place, the week before, if they're all gonna be at the 1 park, we have 1 tree tender in charge of planting, 1 in charge of staking, so they can go around and make sure it's all done
Yep.
properly. Each person has their own job to make
Yeah.
sure it gets done
All right.
the proper way. And I think we should mulch while we're there
Yes.
and kind of clean up as well,
Yep.
if we can.
Good point. Forgot
And-
about the mulch.
And no trail areas.
No trail plantings?
No, it's too tough for people to dig
Yeah.
I agree.
with all the roots.
Yeah, I would definitely.
People were
rec-
struggling. It was
Yeah,
too much.
I would definitely take that one out of the parks locations. If I could make another suggestion, something that, again, is hard for the guys to catch up on depending on what the parks guys have going on, is if we could also include, in addition to everything that James said, also putting the deer fencing on. Because I know Gretchen thankfully had sent out an email, and we had to go through and throw the deer fencing up because some of the trees were already getting damaged. So if they could, whoever is running the training, again, I feel like it's, quantity is great, but the quality is what we're striving for. So I don't care if they plant 5 trees, but if they're all planted correctly, tree diapers, mulch, deer fencing, stakes, the ropes are nice and tight, then it's a success. But to have to go back, there were locations where, we went and saw there were piles of dirt all over the fields. There was no deer fencing. Some of the ropes weren't even tight enough to anchor the tree. So it's the numbers that we put up are great, to have, 250 trees planted in a year.
276, Ricky.
Good point. But you get my drift.
In regards to deer fencing, is that something that the township could throw a couple rolls into the
Oh,
mix?
yeah. No, we'd be happy to.
Okay. And
And
that
given-
just requires 2 additional stakes. So
Yeah.
4 total stakes per tree. We already get 2 per tree from PHS.
Yeah.
We just
No,
need,
we could, and, yeah, no, we would definitely help out with that.
for deer fencing, right? You need 4?
No. Can't we just use the black mesh around the trees?
The black mesh.
Yeah, but you need to anchor the mesh to something, right? You think so? All right. So we can just wrap it around the existing stakes that we're driving in to have the arbor tie on. No, these are the
No, these are 12
12-footers. Yeah, yeah.
half-inch trees. And I thought they were like a little black
Yeah.
mesh.
Get some
That
magic.
stands corrected.
Get some magic deer
For
fence
correct,
over there.
yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
Need 4 stakes, yeah.
They're doing it all the way, they're doing the perimeter.
Okay. Could I add another suggestion instead of the deer fencing that Miss Leah just reminded us of?
Yes.
Before, we used to use like the plastic tubing
Right.
to put around the trees. So we could use that instead of using the deer fencing, because we just make sure it would be cut, and we would give you the amount for, for each tree.
Sure. Well,
Well, you would still need the stakes to anchor it.
because they're bare roots. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Have we seen, like, the burning that we saw with the gator bags? Do those surface deer protection? Is there any issues with those things?
With,
The gator bags.
The PVC,
I haven't seen any, no.
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 Okay.
I think I have hundreds of the black netting that go around
Okay.
the tree.
Oh, okay. I was, the picture that Gretchen had sent was the perimeter, like,
That's what we did.
yeah, right. I mean, they're both similar and do the same thing effectively, right?
We're going to keep the deer from rubbing up. The ones that are just going around the trunk of the trees
Can move it around.
when his antlers are coming out or whatever, he's still going to rub it
Yeah,
probably and might do some damage. If it's around the perimeter, like what the Willis has, it might keep them away
okay.
better. So
We can work that out.
one works better.
All right, well, we can take that offline and duke it out. And mulch. As long as we can get a load of mulch wherever we're planting, and we'll need a wheelbarrow or 2.
Or bucket,
Or
bucket.
we'll take buckets, As long as we don't have to carry it with our hands, we'll be good.
Today that we're volunteering, I'll bring the machine. and we can-
You like that thing, don't you?
No, I have another one. Like our little bobcat.
I,
I think you would too.
I think Cohen
I
was
would.
done perfectly, so we could use that as a sample, wasn't it, Eileen?
but no, I would love to bring my tractor out.
So we'll leave it at 80. The other thing is approaching WBA.
Yeah, I can fire that conversation back up.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to do, Eileen did just a Herculean job now that I'm trying to tackle this myself with, as you know, it's a lot of work getting coordination of everyone to get trees planted in the WBA. So I would love to plant more there. It's just a logistical feat.
I can take that on, Seth, if you want me to coordinate with WBA.
That would be fantastic. And maybe we plan for the fall we can earmark, let's say, 40 to 50 trees at this point. If we can get that, great. If there's more desire, we can allocate some more, but I would love to drop another big impact set of trees along Lancaster Ave.
That's great.
That would be super helpful. Thank you, Eileen. But for the spring, I'll still get in touch with my AT&T contact and see if we can get those 15 or 20, whatever it was, dropped there. Okay.
Can I,
That's it then.
Seth, can
Yeah.
this might be off the topic, having a conversation with John, and I think we actually revisited this or had talked about it at an earlier meeting. And, you guys can open this up for another discussion later. But I know there was conversation in regards to bare root trees versus ball and burlap or, gallon buckets. I just want to throw an idea out there because we do have, great numbers with the bare root trees, but I was wondering if we can have maybe a marriage with maybe some ball and burlap or bucket size trees, 10-gallon buckets, just for if it's an argument for money. You could highlight what you're doing, but maybe even ask the board for more so that you can purchase bigger trees. You'd have a tree program that would be growing in waves. You'd have smaller trees coming up, and then you'd have bigger trees ahead of those. It would cost more money. And that's just an idea, like talking to John, he kind of asked me the question of why, why do we get away from ball and burlap? And of course, it's money.
Sure.
Those trees price is astronomical, and unless we had a vendor who would make a deal and give us something almost at a discounted price, it really wouldn't help so it was just a conversation to start,
Sure.
however you.
I mean,
you do
especially
it.
when you're looking at survivability, you know what I mean? Less chance of failure for a containerized tree than you would for a bare root when you're having volunteers plant them.
Yeah, I've heard, I guess the volunteer is the wild card. But I think professional to professional,
Yep.
I've seen numbers that bare root
Yeah,
has higher sub-bare root.
for professionals, yep,
Right.
correct. But when you have volunteers and
Sure.
people are rushing in, there's post-care because things don't get completed and, watering and realistically climatic-related issues where, like Ricky pointed out, they're going to be fertilizing, mowing grass and getting things spring ready. It's just tough to get things completed, 100% with volunteers.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, they do a great
Yeah.
job, but getting from A to Z on the total implementation and having a final product with,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
think
saying.
about
The
that.
container stock is a lot easier to manage, handle. Planting depths are easier to
Right.
follow, less settlement. And I'm talking strictly volunteers. And
Sure,
nothing
right.
wrong with volunteers. I'm saying the practical and the best management practices with bare root is,
Yeah, we'll think about that. I know the Conservancy obviously does a huge giveaway of container trees every year, so I don't want to impact that aspect of it. I don't think it would per se, but yeah, we'll think about that. All right, so not to drag this evening on for any longer than it needs to. Spring planting, sounds like we have some good next steps. So Frank is going to take the action to reach out to local tree companies to see if they want to help us plant and how many. And the order's in for 80, correct? So we'll add on to that 80 tree diapers. The township will look into providing deer fencing to whatever capacity we can come up with. If we need to use our budget for some of that, it's fine, but I'm sure we can figure it out either way.
I'm sorry, Seth, I'm sorry. Did
Deer-
you want the
yeah.
deer fencing or you wanted the tubing?
Let's take that offline. I don't know. I think
Okay.
we need to do some research and figure out what is the best solution.
Okay.
We'll let you know. All right. Anything else on the spring planting before we move on? Okay. 2023 annual goals. I'm going to put together another formal deck I wanted to get through tonight just to see if anybody had any crazy ideas. But it sounds like we're status quo with what we've been doing in 2022, so I'll put that together. Hazardous trees, 555 Lancaster Ave. Ricky, do you want to give us a quick overview of that?
I would probably lean more towards John, but all these trees, or just that one at that location, was vetted by John, submitted by a resident and a contractor who wanted to have it removed. The hazardous tree report was looked at, reviewed, and the permission was granted.
Tree had bacterial leaf scorch really bad and was totally declined beyond recovery.
Good, okay.
Does that arborist have a good license?
He does. And yet, Ricky did reach out to me for this one because Ricky, did we ever clarify if this was zoned commercially or not?
You spoken about the one 430?
This
Yeah,
is
that's not the one I called you about. That one's coming now.
okay.
And it is commercial, as you asked.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So 555, I'm sorry, I didn't
Yes.
realize. So 29-inch DVH red oak, hazardous, and Brandywine Realty Trust. So the only reason why this came in front of us was because it was close to Heritage? It was commercial, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Did you want to talk about the other Lancaster Ave tree, Ricky? I don't see it on the agenda.
No, they didn't
Okay.
touch on it. Like, permission was just granted
Sure.
for them to take it, so nothing's been removed yet. We received a call from a property on Lancaster Avenue next to the daycare, it's apartment building. They have 5 trees that they wanted to remove, and the gentleman, the owner, was nice enough to call just to make sure he didn't violate anything. And, after me and you had a conversation offline, and basically it would be good if he listened or followed through with respecting the ordinance. All the trees were under 30-inch, none were heritage tree size, but there was a lot of dead in the trees, so I kind of told him, walked him through the whole process, explained to him how it's a benefit because it is a highly visible area right on Lancaster Pike. We would receive calls, even though it is within his right that he's not violating any ordinance or anything to take those down. He complied. He had his tree contractor sending a hazardous tree report. I then sent it to John. John reviewed it. I mean, the hazardous tree report was perfect. Pictures, everything. He explained the condition of the trees, and permission was granted based on John's approval. So when they'll be taken down, you'll definitely hear about it when that happens, because you can't miss it. And we also told him if he does plan to replant, it would probably be a good idea. So we tried to get something back into place, because they're right out front by Lancaster Avenue. So
Right.
everyone will see those trees are gone.
Right. And if they do reach back out to the township, I think I noted this, but, we, as a shade tree commission, would offer them trees. I think we would all agree, being that that's not technically in the WBA at that point, I don't think, but it's along Lancaster Ave, so I think we'd be more than happy to donate a few trees for that, but of course, if he'd be willing to do it, all the better. But thanks for that, Ricky, and thanks for giving us a heads up. And as a reminder, for any tree, well, not any tree, so for residentially zoned tree removals, our trigger is 6 or more healthy trees. In commercially zoned areas, it's 1 or more healthy tree that has to come before us. I always have to remind myself of that. So just wanted to note that and put that to the record. Trees removed by Radnor Township. Anything to note, John or Ricky, for these guys?
No, we just had a lot of ash. I believe a couple of these are noted as maple, but I believe they were ash. It may just be typos either on my end, but a lot of them were mostly ash and all risk related.
Great. Any of those were park trees? Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, Fenimore Park
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go.
and Petrie Park.
Got it. So those might be some good spots to replant in the future. Cool.
Are you guys removing the tree on Roberts Road? Did you mark that, or is that somebody else? I think it had orange tape on it. It's an ash tree that's like right on the road, all hollow.
Yeah,
Wasn't you guys?
not that I know of. We don't use orange, we use white, but I could check with, do you know where out on Roberts,
It's
whereabouts?
like south of Roberts, like halfway between. You can't miss it when you go up Roberts Road.
Yeah.
Wasn't that on the list that you sent over from Aspen?
I'm not sure if it was or not.
I think it was.
Was it? Okay.
Is there utility right by there?
On that side.
I think the
so.
utilities are on there. Bless you. Yeah, I wasn't sure because they were there in December and they haven't been back, so.
Speaking of, is there any PICO items you wanted to touch on?
No, I sent an email to Ricky, John, you were on it, and with the Aspen contact. So hopefully they'll contact you and give you a list and coordinate that way. Because there was a couple trees there I saw, they were by the wires, right? That were removed, so.
Great, thanks for doing that, James. All right, anything else from anyone up here? Any public participation? Yes. Thanks for hanging on with us.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. My name's Faith Zerby. I'm a biologist with Delaware Riverkeeper Network. I'm a tree tender, and I'm also a resident of Upper Darby Township. So I really appreciate hearing all the brainstorming. I wanted to kind of chime in because we struggle with a lot of the same things, but we appreciate everything that's happening upstream to protect trees and to mitigate stormwater as the storms are coming down. So we do appreciate you. A few things just real quick I want to share, which is not what I was coming to, but the one thing I wanted to share was we recently used goats to help with maintenance on vine removal in Upper Darby. I don't know if it's something you'd want to look into, but it's a thought. We did that, and it really was something that residents got into because they came to see the goats, and they were really excited about it. It was mostly Asiatic bittersweet, English ivy, Japanese honeysuckle. They really took out a lot of the thickety areas. Might be a little bit different up here, but I just wanted to mention that. Second thing was million trees. The million trees, everyone's shaking their heads. So you know about this program, right? We have a nursery that we had established, and we are getting a lot of free trees right now. We're keeping them in our nursery. The nursery is in a local park in Upper Darby, and we're kind of just letting the trees kind of nurture along, right? Mostly volunteers are doing that, right, through the tree tenders. So I'm just throwing that out there. You're part of the Darby Creek watershed, right? So you're upstream of us, and we have some room. So I just want to throw that out there. I could bring it up. We have a tree tender meeting tomorrow. And the township's been great in Upper Darby. They've been doing a lot of we've been doing the plantings, but then we have a watering program that the township is doing. And we've used, the last 2 summers, we've used younger, they're mostly gentlemen. I wish there were more women, but mostly gentlemen who are hired, and they've been coming out and doing invasive vine removal with me. I sort of help spearhead that. I do it as a volunteer. I'm teaching them about how to remove the vines effectively at the time of year. It's summer, of course, and we know how that is. John, you've pointed that out too, a little bit with stump wiping or not, right? But it's a big thing, so a plan is good, right? Down a 5-year plan for invasives. It's a tough one. We're doing English ivy right now in the winter, right, to get some of those big trees down. So, but why I'm here tonight, so again, thank you so much for everything, but I just wanted to flag the West Wayne Preserve. This is a project, I mean, it goes back many years, but this was a project that back probably over 10 years ago, Radnor was going to cement the West Wayne Preserve and make it a basin, like a traditional basin, and it was preserved to be a forest. And my understanding is the Army Corps of Engineers is looking at now doing that project, doing a little bit of implementation to allow more stormwater infiltration. I think a lot of the trees are going to be saved through the process, but I wanted to just flag it for you all and offer up our assistance at Delaware Riverkeeper Network to help a bit if it's at all helpful with that project. My understanding is, that park is about a 7-acre parcel. I haven't been out there for over 10 years, even though I live very close. I know there's invasive vines and invasive trees in there as well. I remember from being out there on site. But I understand that they're going to be taking that project forward. So why I was here tonight was to just voice our overall support for that project as a stormwater infiltration, again, for all the downstream communities, and again, just thanking you all for doing that, right? It's not going to be a traditional cement basin, which doesn't really work. It's a natural, beautiful area. And if Delaware Riverkeeper Network can help, coming out, just like John said, I could come out with some volunteers or just talk about or flag some trees and things. Happy to do that as part of what we do. Because we're very invested in that project, and we remember that from 10 years ago when it was all kind of coming to fruition. So we appreciate everything.
We just recently spent 6 days in there doing the total tree inventory, and I believe that is a grant project. I can check with Mr. Orsini regarding that, but there is a pretty substantial landscape plan and mitigation plan, so I mean, it's a pretty
Yeah, I remember
serious
seeing
project.
the plan came before us some point last year, so we could dig that up. But yeah, definitely would, appreciate any input that you guys may have, and thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, and I think Meliora has been doing a lot of the design, right? So we've been in touch with Michelle, and Michelle had said, come on out and support the project, make sure it's kind of moving forward. And I don't know how the funding works with it, right? But I just wanted to kind of offer that up. And really, we just wanted to give kudos out, because it's one of those things, everything takes time, right? Everything is like the long game, right? We're all in it for the long game. People here maybe don't remember 10 or 15 years ago when that was going to be a cement basin. But it's a park now, and it's a beautiful park. And of course, it's going to need maintenance. And now there's this wonderful project, so we appreciate all that you're doing. And as a downstream neighbor, I also appreciate it too, right? So if there's anything we can do at DCVA or Delaware Riverkeeper Network, let us know, and we just wanted to send gratitude your way. The main thing is what we did hear from Michelle, of course, is that, with the tree inventory, we've got invasives there. So if there's anything we can do to help with invasives, if that's not part of the grant, I have no idea. We would gladly help with that and help organize some volunteers around it, as well as the Conservancy or DCVA too, but we kind of offer that up as part of that project.
Great. Okay, well, sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated. And thanks for everything that you do, too. All right. Anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.